This week we're going to be finishing our Ming pottery inspired drawing by cutting it out and mounting it onto a background. We're also going to be adding a shadow to make it look more three-dimensional. First I'll talk about the vase for the second graders, then I'll talk about the plate for the first graders. So you can skip to your section if you wish. So first we're going to cut out our vase shape and try our best to make sure cut right on the line. You don't want the line to be showing in your final project. Remember to nibble with your scissors, not chomp, and also remember to turn the paper. Those are a few things that we talked about when we have used scissors in the past. So continue to develop your craft, which is working as neatly as you can, slowly cutting out your shape. And there we go. Next, we're going to pick our background color paper. So if you have options of different colors, try and pick a neutral color. We want that blue and white to really stand out. So if you have a colorful background, the focus is not going to be on the vase, it's going to be on the background. So pick a neutral color. If you remember from past projects, neutral colors are the kind of colors that are dull, things that can be natural hair or skin color. So gray works, light brown, black could work too, but it might be harder to show the shadow. So any kind of neutral color is okay. If you don't have any color paper, white paper is okay too. It might blend in a little bit to the background, but if that's the only option, that is totally fine. So before we glue this on here, we're going to add a shadow. So to add a shadow, I'm going to be using oil pastel, but if you don't have oil pastel, you could try it with a crayon or you could try it with pencil as well. So for the shadow, you're going to first decide where you want your vase to be, but don't glue it on yet. I think I'll have it a little bit off-centered like this. And then very lightly, draw a shape that connects the bottom of your vase to the side. And that's where we're going to be adding the shadow. Also very lightly trace where your vase starts. That way we know where to make dark, and as the shadow goes away from the vase, it's going to get lighter. So we're going to change the values a little bit. So now, inside of this shape, start with a dark, and you can go over the lines a little bit on this side because it's going to be covered up by the vase. And then you're going to go lighter and lighter towards the edge of that shape. So it's darker towards where the vase is going to be and lighter away from the vase. Next, you can take your finger, or if you don't want to get too messy, a paper towel. And then we're going to rub it a little bit. Try and rub away from the vase. And that's going to make your shadows more blended and more natural. Okay, so now if you put this back, it's going to look like it has a really realistic shadow on the bottom. So once you have that, you can go ahead and flip your vase over. You can use bottle glue or stick glue. If you're using stick glue, just get a little bit out, go around the edge. If you're using bottle glue, make sure you're only squirting a dot at a time, dot, dot, not a lot, touching the paper with the orange parts, or try a snail trail. A very thin line on the outline. Always touching the paper with the orange part of the glue. Make sure to close it when you're finished. And then flip it over, match it up to where our shadow starts. Make sure it's straight up, so it's not a vase that's falling down. Press it down gently. And now we have the vase. The last thing we're going to add is Chinese characters. So we learned earlier that the style of artwork in Chinese is Qinghua. So we are going to try and write those letters somewhere on your picture. If you're in Chinese immersion class, this should be pretty easy. If you're in English class, then it might be a little bit difficult, but I would like you to try it out. So a lot of Chinese artwork has some writing about the work or the artist. So we're going to write those letters onto our project. If you're in Chinese immersion and you have a Chinese name, you could also write it in the empty space as well. If you know some other Chinese words that you would like to add, for example, you could write bird or fish if that's what you added to your project. You could add it as well. For students in English class, try and at least do these 2 letters. For students in Chinese immersion class, make sure to use these letters, your Chinese name, and if you want, you can add some additional Chinese characters. So this is the end of this project. Make sure you take a picture of your finished work this week and send it to me through our Sonia or Canvas. For the first grade plate, the first step is also to cut out the plate shape as neatly as you can. Remember to use the scissors little by little. That's nibbling, not chomping. That's how you get jagged lines. We want to develop our craft. That's working as neatly as you can. Turn the paper instead of your scissors. And try and cut as neatly as you can right to the line of your plate. This next part that I'm going to show you is optional. Optional means that you can try it if you want, or you can skip this step if you want. So for this step, if you're going to do it, you need a paintbrush and you need a little bit of water. So you're going to make your paintbrush wet and very carefully trace over your marker line. So you're tracing it for the second time, just this time with just water. Now when you do this, the lines become a little bit blurry on the edges. And that's gonna look more realistic because a lot of the lines on pottery projects, those are clay projects, are a little bit blurry. So if you want to make yours look blurry, you can. If you use crayon or something that's dry, of course you won't be able to do this, but again, that's okay because this part, you can choose if you want to do it or not. As you do this, if you want to kind of smear the water to color some spots in, you can do that as well. If you are going to try this out, just one thing is to not put the water all over. So you will have to trace over all of your lines. If you make the whole thing wet, then we're not going to have that beautiful white color that this style of pottery always has. Okay, now the next step is to glue it onto a background. So for your background, I would recommend picking a neutral color. If you remember from the self-portrait projects, neutral colors are the kind of colors that are really dull and not very bright, like red or blue or yellow. They're the kind of colors that can be natural skin or hair color. So gray or tan, light brown, black could work too, but the shadows won't show up really well. So kind of a light neutral color would work best. Once you have that, you're going to set it on top of your paper, but don't glue it yet. We're going to be adding a shadow. So for the shadow, before you glue it on, you're going to first draw a crescent moon shape that touches the side of the plate. And then lightly trace the place shape too. So the first line is going to be a little bit bigger than the plate. Second line is going to be smaller. And when you take it off, you're going to get a crescent moon shape. So this is where we're going to add the shadow. You're going to start dark, add that in the inside of the crescent shape. And then you're going to get lighter and lighter towards the outside of the crescent shape. Shadows get lighter as it goes away from what the shadow is coming from. And then when you're done, you're going to take your finger or a paper towel and rub it. So it's gonna get blurry like a shadow is. And then we're going to put the plate back on here, and it's gonna look like your plate has a very realistic shadow. To glue it, you can use whichever kind of glue, bottle glue or stick glue. If you're using stick glue, make sure only a little bit is out at a time. Go around the edges and make sure to close it. If you're using bottle glue, shake it and twist it open. Remember to do dot, dot, not a lot around the edges, or a very skinny snail trail. For the snail trail, the orange parts of the bottle should always be touching the paper a little bit. Make sure to close it. Flip it over and glue it on. And press it down a little bit. And there we go. Now we're going to add a few designs to the background. And one that I would like you to add is the Chinese word for blue and white pottery, which is Jinghua. So if you're in Chinese immersion class, you might already know these letters. If you're in English class, these might be new letters, but I would like you to try it out. If you're in Chinese immersion class, you could also write your Chinese name somewhere on the corners. You could also even add some other Chinese characters that you know. For example, if you drew flowers, maybe you can write the word flower. Or if you drew a dragon, maybe you can write lung for dragon. So that's up to you. I would like you to at least try these two letters, but then if you know some other Chinese characters, you could add that as well. So this is the end of this project. So make sure that you take a picture and send me your finished artwork through ArtSonia or Canvas.